Hi, Guido Fox here. Welkom bij een nieuw book report. Today I want to discuss with you this book from Hanno Sauer. Is a recent book about morality. It's a German philosopher and some wonderful women, very good women, translated into 400 pages of information about morality. And morality, let's start with the main topic is what is good behavior and what is bad behavior and how you can control yourself, right? And we see nowadays in war times and intentions, feelings and moments that's difficult to behave yourself, and you go into disgusting crime, war, acts, and also in daily life, stealing, shouting, violence, drugs, you name it. There are so many things who are not going well by people and in society. They're doing bad things, fraud, stealing, cybercrime. So rude behavior on the streets, acting in a violent way. So there is a lot of things are not going well in this unenlightened society. We're still young. Civilization not started yet. That's what Osho also wrote in his 410 books. So we are thinking that we live in a civilization, but it is not true. Probably we're living in the jungle with suppressed systems like the police and the court system, because if you're going behind a red line, you have to go in jail, right? So we are entangled, chained by institutions. And this is the line of the philosopher Rousseau, who said, we are all very young children, and because of these institutions we don't steal. But if there are no police in 3 days, the hell is breaking out, and everyone are going into lottery, into stealing clothes and Nikes from stores. So morality is a very interesting thema, subject for yourself, for your own behavior, because karma is a bitch. So what you see in spirituality and Buddhism is your actions are affects yourself. If you're stealing, probably someone else is stealing from you, or you get some bad reactions from universe back. So that's the first teaching I give to you. So karma is a bitch here, right? He's not mentioned that here in this book, and that's also one of my critics of this book. There's a lot of things discussed, but actually the question from where morality goes and how we go as society and as an individual person to a higher morality. And that's not discussed. It's very descriptive about the history and the past, but not really where we are going or have to go. So a lot of pages, different side roads. So it was also difficult for me to get back the core line in this book. So where we have to go with each other to create a higher morality, because it seems that we are now slaves, still slaves, young children, slaves of the system, because with police and court we're still behavioral patterns are quite well, but when these institutions are gone, what kind of society we have at that moment? And there it has to go, right? What if we don't need an army anymore? What if we don't need the police anymore? What if we don't need courts anymore? What if we don't need jails anymore? How much money, effort, energy comes free for other beautiful things in the society, like education, healthcare, sports, more freedom for everyone? There's so much waste of energy, knowledge, and money who goes into a very suppressive system. So that's a little bit background from my vision, the vision of Osho, from Rousseau, and how behavioral patterns grows in certain cultures in this world to a higher level, and you see that other cultures are in another stage of development. I don't want to discuss too much about that, but different cultures are in a different stage of evolution, and that brings clash of civilizations with all the deaths who came out of it. He starts with some interesting knowledge about morality. And I said to you earlier, because of our institutions, police, court, maybe some social control about your family and your friends who are holding you back if you're doing something wrong, especially in small villages. There's some social control, right? You don't steal a bike because if your parents know it, or the friends, you have no friends anymore. But this morality starts in the jungle. We lived in very efficient small groups, and we had to live in small groups. That's an important sentence I make. You had to live in small groups. Now it's not necessary anymore, because you can earn your money yourself and you can go to the supermarket to have some food. But in those days in the jungle, you needed small groups of people in your surroundings to go on hunting, to protect your village, to work together for cooking, for your meals, and also to share the risk. And it's a very important sentence I make, to share the risk. So there was, of course, opportunism, self-interest for dealing in a group. So dealing in a group was good for the group, because the cake is becoming bigger and bigger. You can hunt more, you can manage things more, so more food, more safety. You can have guards in your small village. But it is also for self-interest, because alone you're alone and people can easily hunt on you, and it's not easy to hunt alone for food for animals and to cook alone and all those kind of things, right? You cannot also reproduce yourself alone. So that's also a sexual thing there, what is difficult into the small groups dynamics in the jungle where we come from. So share risk is an important thing. Why people has to work together. Has to work together. You had to work together. And because you had to work together, you behave yourself. And that's what you see in the small group dynamics in the jungle. And also nowadays, they're actually quite peaceful and calm. There's a kind of hierarchy, there's a kind of structure in the group, and there is not a lot of fights in the group about positions, about small things. That's actually quite peaceful, small living groups instead of the civilized cities where you have gangs, where you have bombings in town, where you have drugs addicts, homeless peoples, and that kind of stuff. So what kind of civilization, right? So in those small groups there's a kind of solidarity, and people live peaceful, mostly peaceful, in their social circle. And that's also what Osho was mentioned in his book, and he also was into those small social circles, how it works. And because you share risks, and because you are involved, and you have self-interest in those groups, you're channelizing your impulse behaviors towards bad behavior. That's interesting. You're channelizing your impulsiveness. You're impulsive towards bad behavior. So also there, that is situational. I talk later about the philosopher's stream, the way, the direction, about situationalism. And that's the way, the direction they say in the philosophy. Okay, everything is dependent on the outside construct. So I talked with you about Rousseau. He talked about the institutions like police, court, social system, who affected your behavior. And in those days, in the jungle, the small group and the self-interest was actually saying, okay, we have to stop bad behavior because otherwise I have to go survive alone in the jungle. So that was actually the matrix, the system, who suppressed your bad behavior, suppressing your morality, of leading your morality in a good way. So also here you see that outside mechanisms are influencing your morality. And that's what I miss in this book, is how we can go to a higher society whereby we don't need any more outside systems to grow in your spirituality, to grow in your morality. And that's, I think, the next step. That's spirituality, that is meditation, that's coming by yourself, that's evolve yourself. Then you create a higher morality, what's independent on outside mechanisms. And nowadays you can survive alone, not in the jungle. So we are further in our evolution than before, right? But still, people are group-minded. They want to have a stingy group because they're insecure, and they want to have so-called friends all the time because they're scared to be alone. So they go into a group with colleagues or friends, otherwise they feel lonely. So outside mechanisms are influencing your way of behavior. So is it coming from yourself? You can decide by yourself, right, if a murder is good or not. You can think for yourself, right, if stealing is good or bad or not. And this is an interesting step. He mentioned also Nietzsche about crowd morality. And actually the crowd of people with an intelligence quotient of 100 they are not interested in spirituality. They are not interested in personal development. Normal people are not interested in morality. And this is happening in democracy, is that people who don't know anything, who are not into personal development, are voting for incapable leaders. So democracy is mopocracy and is crowd morality. So that's Nietzsche and a little bit my vision and Osho's vision. So you're influenced by mediocre leaders. You're influenced by leaders, and dictatorship is lower than democracy in morality and spiritual values. I know that, but there's also something higher than democracy. I don't want to talk about meritocracy, but if you see, then your leaders are also mediocre. So you're also influenced by crowd mediocre conditionings who is put into the system of the government and into our leaders. So your examples, your external factors are also not good examples for you. Crowd conditioning in the political system, the educational system, the school system, all mediocre, are teaching you not the right thing. You see the world, so much education, so much universities, and so many wars still, so many dead still, so many nuclear weapons everywhere, so many armies everywhere. You see the sarcasm there, the irony there. Oh, what is civilization? What's that? So you are also influenced, that's what I want to say, by external factors who are not really good for you. And that can be the government, that can be the news, that can be your parent conditioning, the family values where you're grown up, the behaviors you saw in your family. So you have all bad examples of influencing your morality on not the way who it has to be. And that's actually the line of Osho with this meditation, is to become free of all the conditionings, all the bad influences in your life and also in your past lives. Also in your past soul lives. Also in your past jungle soul lives. Because we coming back full of reincarnation, there's still destructive behavior through it's going into from soul to soul. We're still very animalistic. Very animalistic. If the control institutions are not there. So for sharing risk, because we cannot handle it physical, we stepped into the groups because the environment in the jungle was very tensioned and dangerous. It was a very tensioned and dangerous atmosphere there. We finding safety in those small groups. And that mechanisms from soul to soul to soul is coming also back nowadays still. If you're going into school or you're going to university, the first thing is making friends. Oh, I haven't searched friends. I have to make friends here because otherwise I'm alone and I feel not safe and I feel vulnerable. So still you see that past soul mechanisms in social behavioral patterns in society, social behavioral patterns. So channelizing your impulsive because of self-interest was in the jungle. And nowadays you see the chain, the chain of morality of the group, right? So moraliteit, that is the big crowd morality where you're influenced by, right? Also the universities, 10% of the people is going to university. Also there is crowd conditioning and you're affected by that. That is what Nietzsche was saying. How to step out of crowd conditioning. And there were some experiments in the past, the Milgram experience. And that's interesting to say. He mentioned also in this book the Milgram experience. And in that experience, people were testing how easily they follow the group way of behavior. So one guy got a chance to punish the prisoner with electrical shocks, and the other guy followed, and they were in the game. And how easy new people who coming into the group did the same, harder and harder shocks to the so-called prisoners who were also in the game, of course, in the experiment. And you see in that experience how easy people go with group dynamics. And they did that after the Nazi Germany, Holocaust, concentration camps, the conformism. Everyone was following that ideology, that vision of Nazi vision. Everyone was following that, and people were scared to not following it, to fall out of group behavioral patterns. So there you see also still the jungle mechanisms from, oh, I want to be by group, I want to become a group, I feel safe by the Nazis, otherwise I fall outside the group and I'm not safe anymore. And that he mentioned on page 255 and also in page 257 he goes into the philosophy stream, the situationalism, that everything is dependent on external facts, external nurture, circumstances, right? So you come into that experiment and you're influenced by the external. And if you go into spirituality, if you go into meditation, you go into higher morality that's coming from inside, then you feel really, okay, this good behavior in these circumstances. Then you feel, right, what is good behavior, what is bad behavior. You know so much about social behavioral patterns. So then it really comes from inside instead of from legal forces in your surroundings. Other thing is interesting. In the jungle, we were very nice to each other in the small groups. But we were absolutely cruel and murderers to groups who were close to each other, your neighbors or groups were far away, and there was a lot of tensions. There were a lot of fights. There were a lot of rapes of the women of the other group. So there is a change in the history in some cultures. Other cultures are still behind. They're more into stingy group dynamics, and everything outside the group is your enemy. But you see the Homo Economicus guy is on page 249. We grow into rational people. We grow into thinking people. So we are more learnable, reading more books, we have more education than in the jungle, and we become more friendly towards strangers. Friendly towards strangers is actually a sign of more civilization. If you can adopt strangers in your group, if you're kind to strangers, that's a sign that morality is rising, that morality is going well. And in old cultures are still behind. In jungle mechanisms, it is less. You see a lot of competition between small groups. It is we, she. It's black, white, thinking there. So friendliness towards um, strangers is a sign of more civilization. So sometimes people are saying the Homo economics is a very mentally rational, calculated guy who's saying, okay, we do this decision, yes or no, and we count everything. But he said, this guy, Hanno Sauer, said, okay, no, this guy is actually also very social. The Homo economic guy is very social, is very social capable, because he can trade, but also trade with strangers, right? In the jungle, you had your own sources and you had your own material. You did everything yourself, and with the trade and the civilization and the more modern society, we get trade. And trade is also that you get know each other, you get know other cultures. So trade is also a social thing. So social evolvement because of economic growth. And that's an interesting point, I think, in the rising of morality from the jungle towards a more modern society. I think this a little bit the core of his book. There were a lot of side roads. It was not easy for me to find really the core issue, but I think I mentioned the core of his problematic theories. And thank you for watching this video about more deeper material about morality, what is good behavior, what is bad behavior, and how we influenced by external factors in life. And I hope I told also you where we can go higher with each other towards more enlightened societies and grow towards more peace in this world where too much energy and cost are losing towards bad behavior, and also towards energy and cost for military equipment. Thank you for watching. I see you by the next video. Bye bye.